This is Larry Osborne here, and we're talking about preaching for life change. And I want to take this session and talk about the difference between preaching like an avalanche or preaching like a glacier. Let me explain the difference. An avalanche is incredibly powerful, noisy, dangerous. I have a sure-tell relative who unfortunately was killed in one. If nobody's hurt and from a distance, amazingly beautiful. A glacier, well, not necessarily so much. Have you ever been on an Alaskan cruise and went into Glacier Bay? Unless a large piece breaks off and calves, it's the most boring day of your life. You're just floating around watching ice melt. But the thing is, you go back 5 to 10 years later where the avalanche was, you won't even know anything happened. You look at what a glacier is carving out, and it's carving out a Yosemite. Now, how does this apply to preaching? Well, I think most of us have had a little bit of training and just have a bent towards taking the important things we want to communicate and going all in. We maybe do a series on it. We really highlight it, but and we pretty much treat it as an avalanche. Here we go, and we think we're leaving a mark. But I've always thought that the best way to really emphasize those things that are most important is not to avalanche it, but just to drip it in over and over and over again. When I went back to writing after taking 13 years off, 15 years to focus on hopefully being a great dad and a good pastor, when I went back to it, I wrote a book called A Contrarian's Guide to Knowing God. And the publishers kept asking me, well, where's some sermon series on this? Because it talks about spiritual formation, and it's the most important things in my heart about spiritual formation. And I told them, I don't have any series, Contrarian's Guide to Knowing God or Spirituality for Rest of Us or any of these little subtitles. They said, well, why not? And I said, because they are too important. You see, when you avalanche something, you just dump it all at once, people have this sense of, I've heard it, and they're not ready to hear it again. Or they miss it. You got to wait a long time until it's time to do it again. But if you drip things in over and over and over again, there's no way they can avoid it. And right when they go from the wow to the oh yeah to hitting that bored stage on the way to knowing it without you, they don't stay bored because it's just a short little piece. In fact, I believe the best life change comes not with the avalanche of information, but the slow drip of certain cliches and certain principles to the point that people actually can, if there was like a Larry roast, they would roast me with some of these cliches that I say all the time and little sound bites. And that's really a good sign. Because if they can make fun of you behind your back on the things you've taught them, you've really taught them. They know it without you being there. So think about it next time you have something incredibly important. Is it better to hit it all at once and give it the best you've got? Or is it better to drip it in over and over and over again until one day they wake up knowing it without you there? Hey, if this has been helpful, hit subscribe, and we'll let you know each and every time we post one of these.